Hi, everyone. I'm Julian. There we go. Yeah, excitement. I'm Julian Morelli. I work in Microsoft. I'm a senior program manager in Microsoft Teams, and I'm part of the developer platform and partner ecosystem. Our team is focused on helping the developers across the globe to build applications in Teams, but we also engage with some of the partners to help them to think through the scenarios and helping to go through the platform and the technical difficulties. So before moving forward, I want to know a little bit more of you. So how many of you are developers or technical people? Okay, we have a few. How many of you are working on healthcare specifically? Okay, that's good. All right, like 70%. All right. This session is going to be about a few different topics, mainly about bots. I want to talk about why do you want to consider to build a bot. This is overall, not just about Microsoft Teams. What are the things that you have to keep in mind? I want to share some experiences. I have been working with bots for the last couple of years, and I want to share some thoughts about this. We want to know also what success looks like for bots. We have a few premises across all the different platforms, so I want to share this with you as well. Some use cases for healthcare, as Chris mentioned before. We have a few scenarios that we map and identify already, and we think they might be useful. And these are just the tip of the iceberg. We think there's way more that can be done. Another few slides to explain how bots work. We have probably a lot of people that had never built a bot before. So I want to give you a highlight. If you want to build a bot, what are the different steps that you have to take? And then I'm going to give you an example of a real bot in Microsoft Teams. Through presentation, if we have time, I can do a real demo over my laptop. And then we're going to have some time for questions. Right, so why do you want to build a healthcare bot? And if you want to do it in Teams or any other platform. And I always talk about three different premises when I talk about building bots. One is you can help your team, the different coworkers that you have in your organizations to make things easier and take decisions faster. And this is because bots are mainly and usually living on conversational canvases. It's inside of the conversation. So you can use the bot as a medium to share information with all your colleagues and get things done more efficiently. The other premise, it's the context switching. I think this is probably one of the most attractive part of building a bot. Nowadays, you're in a conversation canvas, you're having a conversation with your colleagues, and if you want to look for content or you want to pull or do something, you have to switch context, you have to go to a different application, sometimes to even different applications. And the interesting part of the bots is that you can bring this content in context in your conversational canvas. So that's another premise. And the third point is it creates opportunities for collaboration inside of your organization, and you can even bring content from external parties. For example, you can use your bot to push, and I have some examples about this later in a few slides. You can use the bot to push cards and content into your conversation. And because that conversation can happen in a channel, in a team, you can have other people to look at the content that you pull intentionally and have a meaningful collaboration and conversation about it. So now I want to talk about how success looks like for bots. And again, this is a generic statement. I think that simplicity, it's one of the top things that we have to consider when we want to build a bot on any platform. And I want to say that we want to try to make complex things simple, not the other way, making things simple. And this is important. I want to clarify what I mean with this. Usually, when people is trying to build a bot, they're trying to map whatever application they have on a cell phone device or on a web interface, and they try to map all the features they have in the bot in this conversational canvas. And there are differences. Obviously, the first difference is that this bot lives within the users. That's the first difference. But the second difference is that you have a conversational interface. It's not UX driven. There are some exceptions, but it's mainly conversational. So that's why you want to think on how can you think on scenarios that are making or will make things easier for users rather than just converting simple situations that are happening on my web interface. And I'm going to give you some examples about this in a minute. The second point, and this is connected to making things, complex things simpler, is scenarios versus features. Usually we think about features when we're building an application, and this can be across any vertical. It doesn't have to be specifically for healthcare. And then when you're thinking about bots, you have to think on a different way. You have to think, what are the scenarios that I want to map into my bot, in my conversational canvas? And there is a difference. The scenario, I want to, when people ask me, what is the difference between a scenario and a feature? I try to use this example. The feature is a situation that you're trying to resolve, a problem for a user in a simple way. And the scenarios are an end-to-end journey, a task completion situation. And this is connected to the previous point. If you think about journeys and task completion for bots, you're going to be more successful because you're going to try to land and help the user specifically. And again, they are in the conversation canvas, so you don't want to bring the whole experience into this platform with the bot. You just want to bring where the scenarios that are important for these users. And the context is important. Sometimes it's going to be about a private conversation between the bot and the person. In other scenarios, we're going to have a more collaborative situation where we have a group of people and the bot. The other three main components of bot success are about natural language processing, machine learning, and business scenarios. And they're all, in my opinion, are equally important for different reasons. NLP, or natural language processing, is the first step between the user and the bot. It's like a transaction. The user is trying to talk with this interface, with this program, this application, the bot, and the first situation that's going to happen is that you will try to convert this sentence, this instruction that the user is trying to give to the bot, into something that the bot can understand. And we call this entity and intent mapping. And I'm going to explain that in a few slides later. That's the first step. The second, and this is very interesting, machine learning and deep learning. These 2 points are going to really help, and I think Chris mentioned and Mark before, are going to help really the bots to move to the next level. Through these technologies, you can bring personalization. So, for example, the bot can know who is the person that is talking to the bot, and based on the profile, the role that the person has, the bot can deliver different information, or it can express information in a different way. I can be in the same organization as you, and we can have both different roles and different objectives. So based on these technologies, you can deliver the message more successfully. And the third point is our business scenarios. Connected to the previous, now we are connecting all the dots and the things I mentioned before. Business scenarios are critical. If you don't map the scenarios and the real task completion situations from your users, the bot is going to fail, and it's going to fail bad. So try to really think where the things are meaningful for a user in that context. And everyone usually think that bots are a conversational interface, and that's a fair assumption. They live in a conversational space, in a conversational canvas. But we can go beyond chat. Most of the platforms are recently delivering rich or more richer experiences within the conversation space. And we can find this through these 4 main components. So we can find actionable messages. Those are usually task completion cards that will help the bots and the users to take an action immediately right in a conversation without doing this context switching. We have obviously rich cards. Rich cards are connected to actionable messages, but you can deliver the message not just with text. You can use HTML, Markdown. You can enrich the look and feel of your card. And I create this concept of micro applications. I want to call it micro apps. Bots are converting or are becoming micro apps within this conversational space through these cards. We can use the bots to push proactive notifications. We can use the bot as a medium to send messages to one person, to a group of people, based on what's happening behind the scenes on your EHR system or your ERP or CRM, and can send this message to the people through the channel, or can connect different systems through a common layer. And the last point is bot as a medium to compose messages. You can use the bot to create messages inside of the conversation applications. I'm going to show you an example later, but just to give you an idea, usually when you're having a conversation with a colleague and you want to share a piece of content, you have to go to a different application, you have to log in, look for a record, take a print screen, go back, print it. It takes like 6, 7 different steps. And with bots, we can do the same thing with a reduced number of steps, maybe 2 and 3. I can use the bot to look for a record. Can be a patient record, can be something related to admin or finance, and I can paste it into the channel or send it to another colleague in the same context, in the same conversation space. So now let's talk about healthcare and bots. These are a few examples. Again, this is the tip of the iceberg only. You can think bots might be useful for scheduling doctor appointments. Scheduling is probably one of the top things or the top usages related to bots nowadays. You're going to see a lot of personal assistant bots in the market, and this is because they're very efficient on connecting people and the calendar of different people. So you can technically connect your bot to the calendar of the company, and the bot can organize a meeting, can bring the right people efficiently in a matter of seconds, and that's usually take a lot of time if a real person wants to do the same. We can use the bot to monitor health status and notify a human when something happens. You can easily define on your backend system or even in the settings with your bot what are the different conditions that you want to track, and based on certain and specific events, you can push notifications into your channel conversation or a private message through the bot to know what's going on. You can even, right after that, loop people that has to be aware of that situation. We can use the bots for help in home care systems. Actually, with one of my colleagues, we were in HIMSS last week, and we were talking with some companies that are very interested on leveraging this platform to help these home care systems and bots to do more and be more effective by connecting different systems they have and use the bot as a single medium to push notifications or even pull information when they want to do it in the same conversation platform. And the last point, which is still super relevant, important, these assistants can also take care of the billing, inventory, all the admin part that's very, very critical for every business. And we have many, many examples of how bots can do this efficiently. You can use the bot to, for example, push expense report. I can do that through my CRM, even through my bot. And then I need, let's say, an approval from a director of the hospital. The bot can send a card, notifications to the director. The director can just see the card and decide, okay, I want to approve the client this, or even I want to see more information. So we can speed the processes and be more efficient with this. So now I want to talk about how bots operate. I want to give you a highlight on what is the typical structure of a bot. I think Rich later is going to deep dive on how you can build this behind the scenes. But I want to give you a highlight. So the top components when you're building a bot are the first one, natural language processing. As I mentioned before, this is the first step, the first transaction between the user and the bot. So the user will try to talk to the bot using usually a sentence or a string, or we'll try to have a conversation with the bot, and we will have to translate and convert that into something meaningful for the bot. And the next step is going to be to use that information to get information from the backend system that they have. And this can be a CRM, ERP, HR, wherever is the system and the knowledge base that you have behind the scenes. And these are the two main components. Now, the other are more like stretch goals, and bots and the companies building bots are getting more efficient on this. Deep learning, as I mentioned before, to help the bots to be more efficient on how they connect with people based on the different roles profiles, based on the chat history, based on the history that you have between the bot and the user. You can know what are the preferences of the user, and you can even predict what is going to be the next question. And sentiment analysis, it's usually important, especially if you have a help desk bot or something similar, where you want to use the bot to help the user to trash a situation. But at some point, at some extent, the bot might fail. So you want to fail safe with the bots, and sentiment analysis can help you with that. It can actually help you to connect the user with a real human if it's necessary. So this is the typical structure you're going to see when you're trying to build a bot. So on the right-hand side, we can see the backend systems. In this example, we have CRM, ERP, and EHR. We usually recommend to have an integration later in the middle for a few reasons. One is you want to abstract the complexity on pulling all this data from different systems into the bot. As Mark mentioned before, there are different solutions for this, but otherwise you can go straight through APIs if you want to the bot itself. On the bot side, we're going to have a database. Here is represented as Cosmos DB. In this database, you might want to store different information from the user. For example, if the bot is delivering notifications, you want to know where is the user located, what is the language, what are the preferences, what is the best time of the day to talk to the person, and the list can continue. You want to have an admin panel. You want to give the IT admin of the company or the bot owner or the owner of the bot to have the chance to do configuration about the bot and what are different situations and interactions between the bot and the users. And then a schedule worker that is going to help to deliver these notifications efficiently. So for example, the bot is going to send you a message. The message can fail for different reasons, so you want to have a safe and efficient way to retry, or if it's not possible, to let someone know that something's happening. Then you're going to have the bot core, and I'm going to explain that what it means later. And you can have a cache. That's more for performance and efficiencies. And then the NLP, the natural language processing module. And on top of that, we're going to have the webhook. The webhook is going to be the last part. It's going to be the glue between your bot platform and your channel. The channel can be Microsoft Teams, can be Facebook Messenger, can be any other platform. It can be your website if you want. But this is going to be the glue. So in this example, we're going to be connecting to Microsoft Teams to show you how it works. So this is a double click on how the message flow usually between a user and a bot. So you have a new message that is usually coming from a webhook. The message is being passed to the bot. So the first step will be to recognize and identify who's the user. The next step is going to be to do the NLP processing. You can use your own NLP, you can write your own NLP, or you can use a third-party solution. In this example, we're using Ludus.ai. So we send the message. This is a nice way to exemplify how this works. So we send the message, which is basically the question that we have from the user, and we get back a couple of things. We are getting back the intents and the entities. The intents are basically the actions that the bot will take and execute, and the entities are the different subjects about the intent. So for example, let's say that I want to set up a meeting. I can say to the bot, schedule a meeting with John tomorrow. So the intent is going to be schedule a meeting, and the entity, just to give you an idea, will be John and tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be more like a date-driven entity. The next thing is going to be profanity filter. We want to make sure that we're filtering things that we don't want to push forward. And the next step is going to be the bot core. In the bot core, we're going to have the first rule, the rules engine to analyze and see what actions do we want to take based on the entities that we detected through the NLP before. And based on that, we're going to deliver dynamic answers. We can send a message to the user. We can perform an operation in the back end. For example, let's say with the expense report example I said before, the expense report. After a user click on an event, we're going to do an operation on the backend system to persist this expense has been approved. And on the other hand, if we have a user doing a question, what is going to be, or what is the situation of this patient, we can construct a card and deliver that through a message. And the last part is going to be updating the user status and sending the answer back to the user using the channel. Now let's get into the healthcare, the bots, and some examples. So this is an example of a bot in Microsoft Teams. First of all, I want to explain briefly what is our extensibility platform, and then I'm going to show you an example in the PowerPoint, and then if you have time, I will do a real demo on Teams. So Microsoft Teams, it's a platform that we have in Office 365 to help the users to chat and collaborate and be more efficient. And we have an extensible platform to help the developers to integrate their applications in Teams. We have bots. Obviously, we have a platform that supports bots natively. You can use bots to talk to the users directly in a private one-on-one conversation, or you can use the bots to live in a channel in a team to be used in a group of people. We have tabs as well. Tabs are a rich way to present content into Teams. You can use the tabs as to present dashboards, for instance, or rich cards, or when you need a larger canvas. We have connectors. We use connectors similarly as with bots to push notifications into specific channels. And we have message extensions. Message extensions are through some components of the bot, helping the user to share content very easily. And then we have actionable messages and activity feed. These two are connected to the other entities and capabilities I mentioned before. Actionable messages are rich cards that will let the user take actions and do operations in situ. And activity feed, it's about creating awareness. So basically, every time the bot is reaching out to a person, it's going to stamp a notification automatically or to a group of people. So let's get into the bot right now. So first of all, how many of you have used Microsoft Teams before? Oh, well, we have a good number of people. So I will do a very brief summary of Teams for the rest of the audience, and then we can jump into bots. So Microsoft Teams is a conversational platform. Here we have the activity. This is where, oh, you can see it. On the left side, on the top, we have the activity bell. That is where all the notifications are being delivered. We have chats and teams. Chats are meant to have one-on-one conversations or group conversations. And teams, you're going to see it later, is where we organize groups and peoples on different themes and topics. So in this example, we have a healthcare management bot. And the first thing is going to be a welcome message from the bot. It's going to let me know what are the capabilities of the bot. And then I have the option to sign in. So you can authenticate your bot with your backend system. So you can know who the user is and how the user is going to be connected with the system that you have behind the scenes. Now that I'm connected and I have the bot in Teams, I want to do something else. For example, I want to know what are the financial options for Aaron. This is one of the patients that we have in the clinic. So I can just type what are the financial options, and I can get a rich card with a few different options and alternatives. And the situation can be the patient gets into the clinic and he needs some financial assistance. And so he walks into the desk of the admin person, and then the admin person can use the bot to deliver this information. The bot is going to let the admin person what are the options. So he, for example, can choose Fabricam, one of the options, and then the person will have to enter the ID to make sure that when they create a ticket for the financial advisor, it's connected to a real patient. So now we have, with 2-3 different clicks, a situation where a patient needed a financial assistant. We created a ticket for the financial person. And now, actually, the next step can be the financial advisor can get a notification through the bot into the activity bell about the ticket. So he can take an action or approve or decline the request if he wants to. Here we have another example where we're using the bot to know who's in the waiting room. So we have, again, the admin person in the clinic. She want to know what's the situation of the patients. So she she types who's in the waiting room, and through the NLP, we detect that she wants to know what is the situation of the patients, what is the waiting time. So we can build these cards using rich formats, and we can deliver to her what is the waiting time, what is the patient ID, and what is the practice involved to the patient. And then she can take an action about one of the patients. So she can select Beth Davis, and through that, the bot will deliver another message with more information. Now, she knows who is the person responsible to attend this person, and she can even take actions now. She can get information about the patient, or she can send a message to the patient portal, or create an EHR task on PCP. Now I want to show you a continuum of the situation that happened before, and an example that Mark showed you on his presentation. Mark showed you how you can deliver notification into any platform using the APIs, and this is the continuity of that. So imagine that you build that connection, and now you push the notification into Teams using your bot, and now you know that one patient has been admitted into the hospital. So we have some information about the patient in this family practice channel where we have a lot of people. And I want to take an action, so I can click on one of these buttons here, create an EHR task. So you can see that we are doing all this stuff in the same conversational platform. We don't have this context switch situation. And I can ask James if he can take a look at the patient whenever he has time, because this is important for me. So I can submit the notification, and you can see that it's posted in a channel that Daniela created an EHR task. Now, everyone knows that something happened about this patient. If I'm subscribed into this channel, I can even get a notification. So I can know that Daniela took an action on this. And the next step is where we have this machine learning process. I got a notification, a proactive notification from the bot, and it's saying, "Hi, Daniela, do you know that the patient has been admitted 2 months ago?" Now, what happened behind the scenes is this. The bot scanned all the information from the past, and the bot detected that the patient has been admitted before. And this is important for the clinicians because they want to know what is the readmission situation about different patients. So we can get this proactive notification with the bot, and I can, if I want to know more, I can click on yes, thanks, I want to know more, or that's fine, I can just ignore the message. You can imagine that you can do a lot of things with the bot behind the scenes once you're connecting all the different systems. Now I want to show you compose message extension. This is a way to share content in the same conversation canvas with just a few clicks very easily. So I can click on the 3 dots here, and from that we're going to display a predefined format that is going to be connected to the bot. So essentially you can enable any information from your system through this type of card. In this example, we're using this to display the patients on the waiting. Similar thing we did before by typing who's in the waiting room. Now we're doing the same thing with a different point of view. We want to use this to share this with someone else. So I want to search for a patient, and I want to click on one of the patients, Cassandra, and now I'm mentioning Crystal and saying, "Hey, Crystal, could you please check the next step?" So I'm creating these cards with 2 clicks. So you can see that with only 2 clicks, we're able to pull information from the EHR system. We put it into a card using different components. And now I can even mention someone to create a word. So Crystal is going to get a notification automatically. And when she clicks on the message, she's going to see this card. So now we're going to switch to what Crystal is going to see, which is this. So she's going to be positioned on the channel on the team. She's going to see the card. And now she can take an action on this as well. So she can ask someone to proceed and do an X-ray on the patient. So with a few clicks, we took an action. We're delivering and creating awareness notification. She's delivering the task, and she's stamping this into the channel as well. So now you see that on the top, we have a notification that has been delivered into the system. And the person that is getting notification is going to click on that, and it's going to see what happened and the event that was delivered by her. Are we doing good on time? Yeah, okay, I'm going to show you a demo now, similar, more real time. So it's the same bot that I showed you before, but this is going to be a real operation, just to show you how simple this is. So here we have the bot. So we can. It's better now. Yeah. Oh, I'm still there. Sorry. Yeah, let me. Thank you. There we go. Yeah. So we're gonna do some examples in here. So I'm gonna type who's in the waiting room, and the bot is gonna send me the list of the patients. So I can click on one of the patients here. And now I have a card, and I can take an action on this card if I want. I can, please. I can hit on the bottom here, and the task has been created. So you can see it's very simple, very, very efficient. Now let's switch to Teams. And I want to replicate the situation of the patient has been admitted to the hospital. So let's imagine for a minute that this is a situation that's happening on the EHR system, and we are getting a card in Teams through the bot where it's telling me one of the patients has been admitted to the hospital. So as I showed you before, we can take different actions. We can, again, take a different EHR task. Let's do an X-ray. And the task has been created and stamped in here. And now we're getting a proactive notification from the bot. The bot was smart enough to scan the information, and it's giving me a card, and it's telling me, hey, the patient has been admitted before, so do you want to take an action, or do you want to just ignore this message? Now we can do another example. We can use the message extension. So I click on the three dots here. I can pull up the bot, and I can use this to look for patients. So I can type on M and get the patients that are start with the M letter. And again, I can define what is the information that I want to pull in this card. So it can be patients waiting. I can use the name of the patient. I can use the ID of the patient. I can do location. It's up to the developer and the bot. How do we want to implement this situation? When I click on this, we are generating automatically this card. And now I can bring someone else. Here I can do that mention. I can do Daniela. Please take a look at this patient. And we hit send. And we deliver the message into the channel. And Daniela can take an action if she wants. In this example, we are just providing a URL. So you can essentially send the user to an external EHR portal if you want to keep doing more things. Right. I think that's it. So do we have any questions? Oh, there's a microphone there, yeah. Oh, all right. Yep.
Hi, my name is Ricardo from Argentina.
I'm from Argentina too.
We are working on a solution for kind of this for chatbots for the people that works on a building, and sometimes we have to integrate with some platforms that are not ready to be connected through through APIs. How did you pass for the same? How do you manage to? You have legacy systems that run in DOS. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a very. Yeah, I mean, we are seeing that situation in different companies. They don't expose their systems through APIs yet, And certainly to build a bot, you're going to need that. And that's probably one of the premises. There is another complexity. Some systems are built in-house in closed networks. They are not even in the cloud. So it's really hard to access information through a common platform. At the end of the day, there are different ways to implement it. The most efficient way is to have accessible APIs on the cloud, on a private network, or in a private environment if you want additional security. If you don't have that, you will, using the database that I show you on the bot, you can replicate some of that behavior. You can essentially push this information into the bot database, and you can use that to deliver the information they require. It's going to be more like an offline situation rather than a real time. You can optimize that if you want, but that's probably the recommended solution in that scenario.
One more.
Yep.
Once you implemented the chatbot and it's functioning, very functional, do you pop up some new metrics or KPIs to the company or organization that this is the data that we are now collecting, and some extra, some surprise that come from the chatbot, but you are collecting a lot of data?
Yeah. So your question is if you are delivering in Teams specific data, information for bots, or you're talking about what are the top KPIs?
Top KPIs, okay. Or new KPIs for the company. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that every bot is going to be very unique, but there are some common KPIs. The top KPIs are usually you want to start initially with number of users, and then you want to move to the frequency, which is the session of the user, how frequently the user is using the bot. The next thing is going to be the number of messages and transactions between the user and the bot. And here is where it's very unique. Some bots are very chatty, so you're going to have a high volume of operations between the user and the bot. But in other situations, it's going to be more like a proactive notification. It's going to be one message and a few messages per day, and that's still fine. I think that it's going back to my point of the scenarios. When you define the scenario, each scenario for the bot, and the connection between the user and the bot, you want to define what are the KPIs and what success is going to look like for that scenario. And there is where you're going to have the KPIs that are going to be necessary to be efficient.
Thanks.
No, you're welcome. Any other question? No, I think we're good. Well, thank you very much.